What do the rich buy that the poor don't even know is available for purchase? A person to go to jail for you in your stead. This is a known phenomenon in Latin America, but I imagine it happens in other places as well. Certainly amongst the Yakuza it happens. I knew a guy who did 8 years for his boss and got paid. Private boarding gate at certain airports, complete with showers, a spa, full bar, lounge, food, a bed, gym, sauna, etc. Total privacy. Your luggage is scanned and taken through security by a concierge, and you're driven to the plane in a BMW 8 Series. Lax has them now. Hello, yes, I would like to order some wealthiness just so I can have access to the private boarding gate. Yes, I'll hold, thank you. Yeah, but then when you get on the plane you're still stuck in the cattle car of first class with all the other plebeians. The animals in the back are even still breathing the same air as you. Clearly a private jet is the only civilized way to travel. Specialized household staff. When someone is truly mega rich, running their household takes the same complexity as running a small to mid-size company, and management is skilled and compensated accordingly. Don't think butler, think head of operations at a luxury hotel. The staff that household managers oversee can be really specialized as well. For example, Larry Ellison has his own personal curator to oversee his collection of Asian art. They do things like advise on the purchase and sale of art in his collection, oversee storage and display of art housed on his property, oversee process of lending art for storage and display at museums. The curator will often have their own staff to conduct actual conservation work, art transport, art installation, etc. So if you've already got an in-house crew of 7 people focused on your art collection alone, imagine how big your entire household staff is. That's why you've got a household manager. One of my friends comes from a super wealthy family. We stopped by her parents' house and of course it's a mansion with a full staff. The lead maid took one look at me and guessed my size. From there she laid out several outfits that had been bought but not worn for me to take home. It was surreal. A well-trained staffer can do that. They specialize in dressing and grooming. They are there to make the home and head of household perfect. Yet I was hired a few times by a housekeeper of an ultra-rich guy to fix everything electronic in the house. I installed smart mirrors in the bathrooms. I built and maintained a theater in the basement. I installed sound systems, maintained a small server in their house with Microsoft Server and VMware for different parts of his business/life. I did a fuck ton of side work in this guy's house for probably 2 years. I worked on various things, made pretty good money, paid for a car and my daughter's birth and paid off a lot of loans with that gig. This guy though had a staff of people. They didn't live there except for one person who housed it full time. He was the guy who scheduled all the work. People don't even know what wealth is. Landing 747s in small airports. I grew up around Lexington, Kentucky. The region is huge on horses, particularly thoroughbred horses. The entire city is surrounded by horse farms, and these farms breed some of the best racing horses in the world. The rich and famous will often come here to buy thoroughbreds to add to their breeding stock. One such person is a sheikh from Dubai, I think, who owns his own private 747. Now the local airport isn't rated for 747 seconds, and it's not legal to land one there unless it's an emergency. The sheikh doesn't care though and lands his 747 there anyways. The airport fines him every time he does this, which he is totally fine with paying. I've been told that many of the upgrades to the airport over the years were almost entirely funded with money from those fines. In London, rich people figured out it was cheaper to just park on the streets illegally and just pay the fines every day than to pay for parking in the city. So the city started clamping cars, so the rich people started paying people to go and pay the fine for the car to be unclamped before they wanted to leave. Entire floors of hotels or multiple floors, entire restaurants, chefs from literally any restaurant in the world to cook for them, wherever they are. I saw all of those things done by a prince of Saudi Arabia. We estimated it cost him $50,000 just for the one private meal in our restaurant, given that he had the top 4 floors of our hotel booked for the hundreds of staff to take care of him, his wife and his 2 kids, plus likely some concubines, if I'm being honest. As someone in this part of the world, being rich equals the number of people who work for you. He paid $30,000 just to close our restaurant for one meal, flew his favorite chef from New York to Orlando to cook for him on his private jet, and then back again. Of course, it was likely the other private jet he had just for his staff, not for himself or his family. Make food our entire staff, all the kitchen staff, all the federal, state and local security and him, his wife and his 2 kids. I have posted the entire story somewhere else in the past, but I couldn't find it easily. I had a buddy who taught ski lessons to another Saudi prince's little kid and had some nearly unbelievable and yet similar details during his interactions with them. That kid had an entire team around him, or probably 10 staff plus vehicles, snowmobiles, a helicopter, and so on. I later met a guy who worked on an ultra-luxury 300-foot yacht and served Bill Gates and his wife, among other super rich people. Their primary job was to operate without interacting with them, or at least as little as possible. This shows you, in some sense, that having people around you doing stuff you need to be done but doing it invisibly is another perk of being rich. A billionaire spending $50,000 a night, every day of the week for an entire year, is about the same ratio as a guy with $1,000 in the bank spending $18 over the course of a year, or 20-ish cents a night. This is what brought this into perspective for me. I had a buddy who hired a driver, got him to get a chauffeur's license, and then made sure his Jaguar was long enough to meet criteria as a limo, and then he could legally drink in the backseat. When I traveled with him internationally, someone met us at the door when we were dropped off, and they walked us to our plane. None of that custom/security stuff occurred. In Iowa, your vehicle doesn't have to meet length requirements. My husband worked with a guy whose wife got her chauffeur's license so he could drink in the backseat of their sedan. True love right here. Luxury ice cubes. Glossy Luxury Ice Co. produces perfectly square ice blocks for minimum dilution and maximum cooling. Hand-carved and completely clear, these cubes are sold in bags of 50 and each bag costs $325. That's some BS. How much a drink is cooled depends on how large of a surface area the ice cube has and is correlated to the rate at which the ice cube melts and thus dilutes the drink. Either you get minimum dilution by using spherical ice cubes or maximum cooling by maximizing surface area. Both at the same time is just not a thing. Yeah, but have you ever had 3 perfectly square ice cubes in your 1965 single malt? Something they do that most people don't know about is buy entire libraries at once. My sister used to work at a bookstore, and told me someone came in and wanted to furnish their library with a library-size purchase of books. They just wanted cherry-picked bestsellers left to the discretion of the people working there. It sounded wild. Edit, this place is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm here for it. Had no idea you could buy books by the foot. What a bizarre idea. Some wealthy people also buy books as decoration, with no intent of reading most of them. They buy books from wholesalers by the linear foot, specifying how the books look on the shelves, size, color, material of spine, etc., without any regard for what the books actually are. They just need to fill wall space in library/office rooms in their homes. Hey, boss, how many different harem-themed manga can we order? If you're willing to fork out $35,000 for the player and $500 per showing, you can watch films that are currently in theaters in your own private home theater. Wow, who would have thought a private showing is only twice as much as a normal movie ticket? Yeah, I mean, if you just skip the snack bar at the theater, it evens out to the same cost basically. I can't afford it, but that's a lot less than I would have thought. Everyone knows about mega yachts, but the very rich also enjoy their own trains, or at the very least private super luxurious train cars. With their budgets, it isn't expensive to rent space on freight lines and an engine, assuming they don't own their own. Sometimes a group of friends will hook their private cars together and motor around a continent having a big party. Now I am imagining some fat cat in his luxury train car between a bunch of loads of coal and some hobos in an empty boxcar. Mr. Burns, this could take a good while. Why don't you get drunk and stumble around comically for my amusement? Smithers, I will be a one-man conga line, sir. Although not around the continent, I have been lucky enough to be invited on a rich friend's train trips, one from San Francisco to Reno, Nevada and back, in the winter, going through the mountains, beautiful, and one going from SF to LA and back, in the summer, along the coast, also beautiful. Both trips we had 3 vintage train cars, 1920, 1935, and 1940, full bar, sit-down dining. Everyone dressed up vintage and it was fantastic. What train travel is in our fantasies, not like Amtrak these days with packaged cold sandwiches and plastic cups.